All right, so tonight what we're starting with, and I think I left my name list over there. I'm going to have to grab it. I have it all written.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So tonight we have honoring us with their presence, I shall say, a very happy group of readers who were part of the readathon. These were the ones who were challenged by the opportunity to read. I know that Mrs. Golder and Mrs. Stino went over and did reading in the class.
Oh, you said you got through his goal and then you just wanted a little bit more.
Not bad, right? Ever to excel.
You're still going to text at the end of the meeting,
Yeah.
right? Replacing the text. We like that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Last one was on the last one.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, I love going up there. I love
8 hours a day.
That's interesting.
Well, that was exciting.
Very exciting. That was great.
So, to a little less boring.
Yes. They had a fast time so they get some sunlight out there. So, well,
So, a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2013.
Make a motion to approve them.
on the banner, it really is the purview of the committee to make a decision about that versus myself as the superintendent. So I think she's going to present tonight.
Yeah. So I'm here on behalf of CF to do two things. Sample banner and just what drives this. So as kind of background, the CEF fundraises through a couple different mechanisms, as you know. One of the mechanisms is by running events, having one that's coming up on April 11th. We also do an annual appeal, which we mail in the fall, which is another.
It's always good to get the message.
Be able to
across.
speak about the nonprofit piece
Right.
of it.
I think it's a great idea. I don't have any problem with it at all. I don't think it's a conflict of interest either. I mean, I've seen at various places where I've gone for my kids' sports events that a lot of school districts have advertisements from profit places. I think that it's great that we tell people who supports our schools.
Great.
So I'd ask for a vote on approving the banner for the CEF in the schools.
I'll make a motion to approve displaying the CEF banner in the schools.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And not voting? Mary's not voting.
That's what we have to get.
How much you put that together?
Thank you.
And I think there's the year gala is next Friday.
The year, just a plug. It's next Friday, April 11th, at Atlantica. And for those who are interested, you can buy tickets online at education.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate the support. All right, so the next thing on my list tonight is the Atlas Rubicon, which is our curriculum mapping program that's being used throughout the district. And Ms. Dean is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Professional Development. She's come to give us an overview as to what we're doing with Atlas Rubicon, why we're doing it, and just give you a sense of what's happening. I'm sure she'll come back next year when there's further information, but at least for the moment, just give you some insight, shed some light on what we're doing this year, because we've devoted so much time to it.
Good evening. If you wanted to know what the teachers at the middle high school are doing today, this is what they were working. This is sort of a visual of what will go on to that PowerPoint. Several years ago, my predecessor, if you remember, had an online curriculum begun, and it was rather difficult to maneuver and to assess, and it was not welcomed really by the staff. So my goal was to make something that was very user-friendly and which followed the template that came from the state. The state had a particular format for developing curriculum using understanding by design, which meant that we design curriculum with the end in mind and knowing what we are going to assess before we go forward. So knowing our destination before we took the trek really was the goal. And prior to that, what we were doing was looking at the frameworks, which would be the Common Core today, and saying, okay, how are we going to instruct this? This flips it on its head and says, what do we want students to know and be able to do, and how do these curriculum standards fit into it? So that was the difference in that. This is what our curriculum looked like prior. This is the most current.
My kids will thank you. You know what it's like. Right. Pull out my folder here. The next thing I have on here is a park update. It's there for a purpose. So in case you should get a call from a parent that says, I understand there's an opt-out option, there is not. And we wanted to let you know that. We think it's only fair. The park transition plan and 2-year pilot program, I'm just reading something from the commissioner. 2-year pilot period, provide a small group of students early exposure to the new assessment system without holding these students personally. It's
This
just
is
a
part of
test.
pilot,
We're in a pilot mode. We're in a pilot mode right now. Parents
It's
will
almost like
allow-
the SAT questions that are
Right.
used just to
To test the test.
Yeah, and Duxbury is also one of the select schools.
Any idea why they only selected grade 3 and grade 7? I'm just curious.
Well, they'd actually selected grade 10 for us, but they took us out because we're at the end of the year. Some places are mid-year and end of the year. We were only end of the year, and it was for algebra, and our algebra ended in January, which means the
Right.
kids would have gone 5 months and then taken a test, so they removed us from the 10th grade. It is so random. Some people have 2 grades, some people have 3 grades. Some people have multiple schools because we're a small district, we didn't have that happen. And,
have a new standardized test where you have to
right.
try to look at what the testing process, is it valid or not?
Yes.
You have to try to get a relatively good statistical profile of students, districts, and regions, and that's what they're.
Yes, and they're doing all kinds of uploads to us nightly, even on the weekends, Saturday night and Sunday night, 10 o'clock at night, they're sending us uploads to disperse to the staff. I am not sending anything to the staff on Saturday night, I'm sorry, I draw the line.
And some of this is Department of Education from
Yes.
the federal government as well as state, so this is not just, this is a broader way to look at it, and I think Massachusetts was chosen by the Department of Education because of we do all of them. But we have a lot of standardized tests that are already part of their understanding of being adequate tests.
It's interesting that that was the criteria for removing 10th grade, because for years I've been hearing parent complaints about how by the time MCAS rolls around, not MCAS, SATs roll around, our kids haven't had math, some of them for a year. So there's a feeling among parents here that impacts their SAT scores. So it's interesting that they pulled us out of that pool.
Well, we had to apply, they didn't just pull us, we went forward and asked them to remove us, and they did. But there are only 2 districts with block scheduling who have been chosen to participate. There are more districts with block scheduling, but only 2 that have been chosen to participate. So they had to tweak some things for us, and they're looking at the folks that block scheduling, what the impact will be down the line as well. So we're sort of a testing ground for them. And we are, again, we're receiving constant documentation. For instance, Brockton had the test. 1 in 4 students were not able to access the test through the computers, and it had nothing to do with Brockton. It had to do with the company producing the test. So that just gives you an idea. There's a lot of kinks they're working out.
Yeah, no, Brockton's a pretty progressive
It's
school
kind of
district.
like,
It faltered, it was really, they sputtered through it, 1 and 4,
Affordable
and it
care.
had nothing to do with the district.
I mean, this is why they're probably taking 2 years to implement it.
Yes. Yes, Saturday night I got a download of things that we should be looking at for tweaking.
sounds good.
Looking at
For,
it's
good that we're
for clarification, did you say that,
Just to identify yourself, please.
Diane Hart, for clarification, did you say that there are no accommodations for the park?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, I thought you said there was no time accommodation.
They will not do all day limits any longer. It is,
Okay.
that's what you're referencing, yeah, you only get an additional 50%, so 90 minutes.
Okay.
That's it. Now, that doesn't mean in 2 years after doing all the piloting, they change how they're doing that for the moment.
Okay, and, what states is Massachusetts being compared with? What other states are being given the park?
This is Demas, would you care?
It says 15
In
states
alphabetical
altogether.
order.
Not a buzzer.
I'm not
Oh,
sure there's
14
15
states.
left.
It's basically 14 states.
Tennessee, Delaware are the 2 that I know of, there are others. I don't know.
There's 13 other states, there's 14.
New
altogether.
Mexico,
Yeah.
New York. In New England, it's New York, Massachusetts right now. Most of the other states are smarter balanced. So I want to say 14 states remain in park.
It was very high originally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's higher than I thought. I thought I heard there were just 2 other states.
2 in New England.
No, I thought I heard it was just New Mexico and Louisiana.
Oh, no.
No.
No, 14 states also have a park.
That was the concern.
Yeah, I
What
have
would
one
we-
more question about, so you said it's a 2-year trial?
Yes,
So we'll do the same 3rd and 7 next year also?
we don't know.
But we will be a test site next year
We
also.
don't know.
You may not.
They won't tell us next year yet.
That
They're
doesn't
just
seem
doing
to
this
make
year
sense.
only.
That's how they do it.
Yeah, I can't
but
answer
how
that.
they-
That's how they.
What I can answer for you, particularly in grade 10, which is a big concern, is grade 10 until 2018 will be taking the MCAS. There will be no change. That we do know. And that's because it would be very unfair to test grade 10 in something that has not been part of their curricular experience. So that's the one thing we do know. Whether we have PARK next year or MCAS is still in discussion as to will there be a choice or not. So that's a discussion.
Yeah, we have to get corporate.
Katie Dugan, 100 Blackbird Road. Just one comment more than anything else. I mean, I consider myself pretty plugged in, and I had no visibility on park coming down the pike until this year. So I think that for the majority of parents, there's maybe a consciousness that MCAS may be leaving us, but no understanding of timelines or what the replacement is. So whatever letter is sent out, it would be helpful to kind of
Ultimately, to replace MCAS
Yes.
and
Parks?
their equivalents
Yes.
across the country.
Well, it's an assessment of the Common Core curriculum.
Right,
Okay.
it's all about the common.
So it's a different way to assess a different way of instructing. So rather than the MCAS, which is 17
years old now.
It's very dated. It is
Let me just give you an update as to what has been happening. Last night, the Capital Committee did meet. I know that Mary Kozik was there. And, you know, they were longer than I was there, because I was at the National Honor Society first and came down at 8:30, and we were still there at 11. But
It's a rich discussion.
it was very rich.
I left
In
a
the
little-
end, one of the items that was discussed and, you know, we had brought to the Capital Committee were our plus situation. Last night, the Capital Committee went through the proposed plans. One of the members had done a 5-option worksheet looking at cost effect for purchasing all buses, not purchasing all buses, timing them out, doing a lease, doing a 3-year lease, renewing the lease and so forth.
Really?
And when they got done with their deliberations last night, the Capital Committee voted to recommend to the advisory committee that we lease our buses, beginning in the fall, that we lease 7 buses this fall, because we just purchased one. And then at the end of 3 years, we lease 8 buses to replace the one that we just bought.
Instead of buying that we want.
And the
And
source
every
of the
3
funds.
years. Well, they'd have to figure out a funding source for us, they would initiate the first lease for us.
Because isn't by definition, capital things shouldn't be leased?
Right.
That was part of the conversation as
Right.
well.
Part of the conversation.
Interesting.
And they
I'm only
decide
reviewing.
who was the one that came up with the study, who did the study on this?
Well, I think they
Dave-
all do.
Yeah, Dave
Well, I
presented
presented
great.
before.
No, but
and
who
last
presented
night
the
was
study on
before.
the leasing versus the home?
A member of the capital budget committee.
But that's public knowledge, I just wanna know who.
Yeah, I think it was
Brian
Brian
Post.
Post.
Was Brian?
Okay.
It was Brian
Post.
Okay.
And just if you don't mind if I add, the kind of the main driver for the thought of leasing as opposed to buying and owning our buses, even if you did turn them over every 3 to 4 years when the maintenance costs go up, is that we're not really set up to maintain our buses properly. There's not a garage to fix them. And
David and I have been working on this for years.
Yeah.
so it in a lot of ways seemed like a more logical way to approach it, and I think it sounded like they were amenable to, if after the first 3 years, you know, if there's something we didn't think of that comes up, they were certainly willing to work with us and figure out how to go forward after that, and that was the.
Question, is this common, David, in other school districts to lease?
Some school districts do it. Hingham leases all their buses.
Have we been in communication with them to find out how it goes?
Yeah, I've talked to them on a couple of occasions.
Thumbs
But
up.
but they have a full service lease. They lease their maintenance also. So when they lease the bus, it includes all the maintenance piece too.
That's not what we're gonna do?
Well, the first 3 years of
Well,
maintenance is pretty minimal,
the first
so it's
3
not.
years, because of the way the committee wanted us to lease it, a lot of it would be part of the warranty service for the first 3 years, so there wouldn't be too much maintenance to perform. There would be some, you have to follow their guidelines, but it wouldn't be a lot of difference.
So it's more expensive to do the old Hingham store?
It is, yes, yeah.
And we didn't have a comparison of doing it Hingham way versus just leasing it?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
We showed that comparison.
And their way, they thought was more economical for us to absorb the after 3-year type of deal? But we're gonna,
Well, their idea is to roll them over after 3 years.
Got it.
So you have a 3-year warranty,
Got it.
like a bumper-to-bumper warranty, and then in
Got it.
3 years, you're gonna get a new bus with the
Got it.
same type of warranty.
Got it,
So
got it, got it.
hopefully that doesn't cost us a lot of maintenance.
I mean, the thought was
unless we get a
that,
lemon.
the thought was that the
Better
maintenance
go
costs
back.
would be much lower.
Exactly. What?
Yeah, the
That-
thought was the maintenance costs would be lower.
The lemon question.
In a vacuum, a leasing solution is great. We're getting new buses every 3 years. They're being maintained by others. If they are like you would hope, you get
Right.
By 8 buses, right?
Yes.
Instead of squeezing it down, and then you get yourself in a triple.
That answers the
And
question.
it does start off as a 7-bus lease, and then as the bus that is newest rolls out at 3 years, it picks up the 8th bus
Yeah.
in the lease.
So the first 3 years, it's a little tiny.
But I think that, to me, that was a very
Yeah.
sane.
Point in.
Okay, is
But
that
we
the
wanted
only
the
thing
committee to
else?
know what was discussed last night. The other thing that was talked about was the technology. Rob gave a very, very lengthy presentation. I guess would be the best way at updating the committee on every single project he has done thus far. I didn't actually have the documentation that came out last night, but it wasn't like 10 pages.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Of how much has happened and the fact that everything that's in process will be done, I believe you said as of September 1st, 2014. And because there were concerns, where's all the money going, what's been spent and so forth. So that was all cleared up last night, and I guess all the line items were completed, it seemed. So then the conversation went on to 2 things. One is the 21st century classroom, what's left to be done and what monies need to be spent. And it seems that we have some monies that need to be spent.
I'm sure Katie does too.
And they voted on those monies to make sure that the 21st century classrooms are completed at the middle and high schools, along with, things like the document cameras and the LCD projectors and so forth. The other piece that they had to discuss was the one-to-one initiative. What Jack Kiley said is that he was tabling the one-to-one for the time being. I think he meant postpone in this instance, not virtually table, but postpone the one-to-one, but at the same time, he would allotted us and voted on $30,000 for me to hire a consultant that would help bring the group. I wanted to bring a group of people together but bring the group of people together that would help organize this for 6 through 12 or 7 through 12 at the very least, and that we begin this in the spring after town meeting, obviously, because we,
Offered, so they're that far ahead. By September, all of them should be certified as train the trainer models. They should also serve as our board for looking at what do teachers need and what will they best access in the classroom. And I know that we were just talking about some of that is already coming through in some of the classes.
Right.
That's good.
And
they are amazing.
in addition, this particular consultant has already come in and
It's on the sign out front too, which is great.
Sign up from, the library has their front ground desk has books on autism on it. The town hall put our posters in the yard and window clings, and so it was a great community-wide kickoff for the month. With, embrace and, welcome kids with differences and their unique challenges.
Oh, sure thing.
Just today?
And the other thing I have to mention is the superintendent evaluation. We're trying to get that done before the next election. There's 2 meetings left, so we'll do the next 2 meetings. Got to call out to Roseanne to have the exact requirements because it's changed a little bit from last year. It has to be reported to the state. There's certain regulations or requirements and things like that. So, I haven't heard back from her, but that's waiting on that. The other thing is the CF year party is coming up on Friday, next Friday. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, if you haven't penciled in your dance card, pencil it in. And aside from the various meetings I've been to, the capital, the budget advisory group, the capital budget, I haven't done much.
That's been enough.
Well, I've been to the Board of Elder Affairs, the high school council, the bargaining for the cafeterias, so I've been busy. And, everything's going okay according to all the meetings that I've been to.
And I
Continue to report.
I just want to note that the class of 2014 is holding a fundraiser at Shoeplay at Derby Shops. It's to benefit the class of 2014. It's on Tuesday, April 8th from 4 to 7 p.m.
As you know, spring is sprung, and so have the real estate signs, so I think it's important for us to begin to track it. So I'd ask that we just begin to engage in a conversation around enrollment updates and accumulate them. I also think it's important for advisory for us to bring not only the enrollment projections, but also a discussion of the history of the enrollment, so that we have the great presentation that you did probably 6 or 8 weeks ago in terms of information on how the enrollment has changed. And I think it's also helpful for them to understand that when it's in the budget for next year, that only shows a 1% increase. And that is a very conservative assumption, so that if we were to experience a 2 or 3% increase like we've seen over the last couple of years, that would mean more than 16 students coming into the district. And I think we just should be prepared to be able to speak about that.
Makes sense to me.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else? Make a motion to adjourn the,
I have a client to see, my morning client in about 8 hours.
Motion to, ask for a motion to adjourn the April 2nd, 2014 school committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn
I'll second it.
at 9:00. Well, my watch says 9:04. That says 9:07. So let's call it 9:05.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night,
Any
everybody.
opposed? None? We have no passes. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I see this.